Many stories focus on ambition, dreaming, longing for something more. These tales examine the journey and motivation behind attaining one's dream, but is there more to longing for something more? The most iconic story to explore ambition is Berserk. When discussing dreams in Berserk, many point to the story's main antagonist, but I believe that Guts could give us some insight onto the topic as well. Guts was born from his mother's corpse and found by a mercenary group. A mercenary by the name of Shisu took Guts in and raised him until she succumbed to the plague 3 years later. Afterwards, the mercenary leader, Gambino, looked after Guts. Deep down, Gambino hated Guts and blamed him for Shisu's death. When he was 6 years old, Guts began to learn swordsmanship, and on the night of his first battle, a man entered Guts' tent. This man, named Donovan, did unspeakable things to Guts, and informed Guts that he had bought him for the night from Gambino. Guts refused to believe this, and he ended Donovan's life in battle later. Eventually, Guts' relationship with Gambino deteriorated to the point where Gambino tried to end Guts' life. He informed Guts that he had sold him out, and Guts retaliated and slayed Gambino. Guts then fled the mercenary group and joined a different band. After living as a mercenary for some time, Guts encountered a young man named Griffith. Griffith, who was impressed by Guts' fighting skills, asked him to join his mercenary group, the Band of the Hawk. Guts refused, but Griffith challenged him to a duel. If Griffith won, Guts had to join the band. Unfortunately, Guts was defeated. Although Guts had a difficult time settling in with the band, he eventually became acclimated with his peers, and after 3 years, he was promoted to the position of captain. I think it is interesting how directionless Guts was during this period. Because of his traumatic childhood, Guts felt as though he had no purpose, and he really only lived for the sake of battle. Despite being surrounded by many people who respected and admired him, Guts had no real meaningful relationships in his life. One thing Guts did have was his admiration for Griffith. Guts respected Griffith for his battle skills and leadership, as well as his charisma and enchanting personality. Because of their reputation, the Band of the Hawk was recruited by the Kingdom of Midland to battle the Kingdom of Tudor. During one of their battles, the band struggled to seize a fortress. This was because of a single warrior. When Guts confronted this warrior, he realized that his opponent was not a skilled soldier, but instead the demonic apostle Nosferatu Zod. During their battle, Zod noticed Griffith's Beherit pendant, and informed Guts if Griffith was unable to fulfill his dream, Guts would die. Guts was just aiding Griffith in achieving his dream, with no real aspirations of his own. It wasn't just Guts who did this though. In a conversation with his fellow mercenaries, Corcus and Judo, Guts learned that Corcus had given up on his past dreams and decided to follow Griffith. Judo had never really settled on a dream of his own, so he chose to aid Griffith and make his dream come true. The difference between Judo and the other mercenaries was that Judo actively chose to aid someone in their dream, while the rest of the band were just swept up by Griffith. Due to the band's success, Griffith became close with Midland's princess. One evening, Guts and his fellow mercenary, Casca, overheard Griffith tell the princess that the only person who he could call a friend was someone who had a dream of their own. Upon hearing this, Guts realized that despite everything they had been through together, he was just one part in achieving Griffith's dream. Guts never had a dream of his own, and because of this, Griffith saw him as less than himself. This revelation would change the course of Guts' life. Many battles later, Guts decided to leave the Band of the Hawk. His dream was to have a dream of his own, and he couldn't find that dream if he stayed in the band. Upon hearing that Guts was leaving, Griffith refused to accept Guts' decision, and challenged him to a duel for his freedom. Guts defeated Griffith, and this was the first real personal defeat Griffith had experienced so far. After a year of training, Guts returned to the band, only to learn that Griffith had been very upset about Guts' departure, and to console himself, he seduced and slept with the Princess of Midland. This was considered an act of treason, and Griffith was imprisoned and tortured. He had thrown away his dream in a momentary lapse of reason. Everything he had worked so hard for was gone in an instant. A year after Griffith's fall, Guts and the remaining band returned to Midland and rescued Griffith. Griffith blamed Guts for his downfall, and although he was incredibly weak, he still made the effort to try and choke Guts to death. Despite being warned by Zod and Judo, Guts stuck with Griffith, and when he was truly hopeless, Griffith's Beret activated. In the eclipse, Griffith sacrificed the Band of the Hawk in order to get his dream back. Miraculously, Guts and Casca survived the eclipse. The only thing on Guts' mind was to kill apostles and get revenge on Griffith. One night, Guts and his elf companion, Puck, encountered a girl named Jill. Jill was a lot like Guts. For instance, her father is a lot like Gambino. They were both drunken soldiers who suffered from leg injuries and abused the children in their lives. Jill was also friends with a girl named Rosine, who was obsessed with a dream of her own. The relationship between Rosine and Jill mirrors that of Griffith and Guts, with both Rosine and Griffith succumbing to their dreams. To summarize, Guts was able to defeat Rosine. This marked a turning point for Guts, as he had helped somebody who was in the same situation as himself overcome an impossible situation. I think that this encounter felt much more personal to Guts because of this. Berserk is a manga that is all about dreams. It shows the dangers of being highly ambitious and what can happen if a dream is lost. Aiding someone in fulfilling their ambitions can be a rewarding experience, but this lifestyle may not be fulfilling in the long run. Not having a dream of your own could really affect how one views the world, and the dreamless will either lead a life of stagnation, or eventually feel compelled to seek out and fulfill a dream of their own. There is a lot more to say about dreams in Berserk, but there are other works that are deserving of recognition for how they explored those who long for something more. In the world of Ikigami, citizens are expected to die for their country in order to control the population and promote the value of life. When they are children, citizens are injected with capsules. These capsules are harmless except for a select few that will kill the child when they become a young adult. If someone has received a death capsule, they receive an Ikigami, which is a message informing the victim that they have 24 hours to live. In part of Ikigami, two street musicians, Torio and Hidekazu, hoped to become famous musicians. In their duo, Hidekazu wrote all the music, and Torio sang Hidekazu's songs. From the beginning, it was apparent that Hidekazu and Torio had different outlooks on music. Hidekazu cared about people understanding his music, while Torio cared more about the success that came with being a musician. One day, after the duo performed their song, Beacon, an employee from a music agency approached the duo. He informed them that he would like Torio to join his band. Eager for success, Torio ignored Hidekazu's warnings and accepted the man's offer. Unfortunately for Torio, instead of becoming the star he dreamed of becoming, he became a background member of a mediocre band. Although he didn't know it at the time, by joining the band, instead of advancing his dream, Torio had killed it. After spending time in the band, the group received an offer to perform on a live radio show. Although Torio had not enjoyed his time in the band, he was still excited to have such a unique opportunity. The radio show made Torio feel conflicted about his dream and place in the world. He was making music he didn't like, and he lacked the fame he so desperately wanted. Despite being a signed musician, he missed the time he spent making music and performing with Hidekazu. Unfortunately, all these worries would be overshadowed when Torio received an Ikigami. At first, he didn't know what to do. He had thrown away his dream long ago. He wanted to sing songs he was proud of and become a real artist. He thought he had made the right choice by casting aside his best friend for his dream, and now he was going to die without seeing that dream come to fruition. Torio spent his final day worrying about what he was going to do on the radio show. During the program, Torio had a revelation. He was going to die just to help some poser make a quick bag. He knew he couldn't do that, and after everything he went through, he had a chance to still make his dream come true. He wanted to go out as a professional. He wanted to play real music, from the heart. Torio picked up his guitar, leaned into the mic, and said, "This is Beacon by Komatsuna." Despite all of the wrong turns he took, in his last moments, Torio was able to fulfill his dream, and, just for a few moments, become a professional, authentic musician. He chose to reject the corporate music that he was forced to play, and express his love for the music that meant the most to him. As we have seen, dreams are rewarding when they are achieved through hard work. But what if your dream is just handed to you? Toshiro Tetsuya's Ability Shop answers this question. Toshiki is a pretty underwhelming boy. He wasn't good at sports, he struggled with being social, and he had to work very hard just to meet the status quo in school. Although this wouldn't be too big of an issue, Toshiki was bullied because of his shortcomings. While most people dream of being something great, Toshiki simply dreamed of being normal. One day, while Toshiki was heading home after school, he stumbled across a strange store. Upon entering, an odd girl informed him that the place is called the Ability Shop, and she told Toshiki that in exchange for a portion of his lifespan, she could make his wishes come true. At first, Toshiki was skeptical of this, so he exchanged 3 years of his life for the ability to be good at studying. The following day, Toshiki took an exam, and his teacher informed the class that Toshiki was the only student to earn full marks. This caught the attention of Toshiki's crush, Kumi, and she congratulated him on his achievement. Although Toshiki could have accepted his new ability and lived out the rest of his life as an above-average person, he could also return to the Ability Shop and wish for even more abilities. What normally would have taken Toshiki loads of work to accomplish was solved with just a mere wish, and his dream of being average was cast aside in favor of dreaming about being the best. Why work hard when you could just have everything handed to you? Toshiki returned to the shop and acquired athleticism, culinary skills, communication skills, and fighting skills. Although this may be great in the short term, in the long run, most of these skills don't really mean anything. Sure, Toshiki became popular at school, but that would only last a few years. At Toshiki's age, with the amount of abilities he had purchased, he only had around 40 years left to live. But Toshiki just didn't care. He could make any dream he wanted come true with a simple purchase. He didn't have to work hard to accomplish his goals, and everyone liked this new, capable Toshiki. Everyone but Kumi, that is. One day, after school, Kumi confronted Toshiki. She told Toshiki that he had changed an awful lot, and that she missed the way he used to be. Toshiki's hard work and dedication to achieving his goals is what made Toshiki stand out to her, and now that he had purchased his dreams, he was a completely different boy. Kumi missed the old Toshiki because in the past, he always did his best. He didn't care about superficial things like being popular. He just wanted to be normal. He just wanted to be himself. In a passing comment, Kumi mentions that she has a boyfriend, and this frustrated Toshiki. He ran to the ability shop and told the shopkeeper that he wanted an ability that no human could ever have. He stated he didn't care how much it cost, and despite the shopkeeper's warnings, he accepted the new ability. The following day, Toshiki returned to school and showed off his new psychic ability to Kumi. Instead of impressing her, this scared Kumi and she cried out for help. Kumi's boyfriend rushed to aid her, and this infuriated Toshiki, who then destroyed the corridor, killing Kumi. Although he had all of his dreams granted, Toshiki was still a failure. He couldn't acquire the last thing he desired through a mere wish. He was blinded by his new powers, and he forgot who he was and where he came from, why he was doing all of this in the first place. For the final time, Toshiki confronted the ability shopkeeper, and he asked her to use his remaining lifespan to fix everything for Kumi. Touched by his final act, the shopkeeper voided all of Toshiki's purchases, and restored his lifespan, making everything go back to normal. Toshiki vowed to achieve what he once had through hard work and dedication, just like before. I think that part of what makes stories about dreams so interesting is the journey one takes to fulfill their ambitions. Toshiki's path was full of shortcomings and holes, which led him to realizing that his dream would not be fulfilled if he continued on the path he was taking. Although Toshiki realized this when it was a bit too late, he was fortunate enough to be given a second chance. That does it for Longing for Something More. Thank you for all of your support on the previous video. Your kindness really meant a lot to me. Thank you for watching. Later, gamers.